PONDering with CGR Undertow.
One thing we have firmly established on this channel is that I am not a math guy. So I'm not sure about this, and I could go look, but I'm far too lazy. But I'm pretty sure that I have reviewed at least 4,000 games here on CGR Undertow. And the opinion that I hear back about the most from viewers is my opinion on Super Mario Bros. 2. I think people think that I think it's a bad game. And maybe I've said things that sound like I'm saying it's a bad game, but that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying about Super Mario Bros. 2, what I think about Super Mario Bros. 2, is that it's a good game, but a bad Mario game. Now, you guys know I'm a big animation guy. One of my favorite animators of all time is a guy named Chuck Jones, and he worked on the Looney Tunes. Specifically, he was the guy responsible for the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons. And those cartoons had a list of rules. This is literally true. There were a list of rules that these cartoons, every story had to meet. Every gag had to follow these rules. And if you broke these rules, you kind of broke the formula of what made the Roadrunner and Coyote work. So for example, the Roadrunner could never actually harm the Coyote himself. The Coyote was only ever harmed by his own ineptitude. Another one was the Roadrunner could never leave the road, otherwise he wouldn't be a Roadrunner. There were a list of rules like this that when the cartoon operated within those parameters and followed those rules, that's what made it funny. And I think if you took all the best Super Mario Brothers games, Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and you looked at them all and you could create a list of, here are things that make these games work that they all have in common. These rules, these things, are what make these Super Mario Brothers games great. If you did that, Super Mario Bros. 2 would break a lot of those rules. I think a lot of it is just the mechanics, the way the game plays. At the top of that list of Mario rules, underlined, bold font, would be when Mario jumps on an enemy, it kills the enemy. Mario stomps enemies. It's kind of what he does. He can't do that in Mario 2. And even back then, it felt really strange. I remember when I first played it as a little kid, and I jumped on that first Shy Guy when Mario falls in the intro, and I ended up I stayed there, and he was carrying me around, and I didn't push any buttons because I thought maybe it was a bug or something, some kind of glitch. Why isn't this weird enemy with a mask dead yet? Is this a slow stomp? Why am I doing this with my hand? And speaking of the Shy Guy, I think that's actually the biggest thing for me about that game that makes it feel un-Mario. It's not necessarily the mechanics, although that is a big part of it. It's not that I can't stomp and there are no fire flowers and a lot of the sort of normal Mario power-ups. That's all weird, but for me the biggest thing is the aesthetic. It's this Arabian thing and there are vases everywhere. Or vases, however you want to say it. And it's not that it's a bad aesthetic. It's actually a really good looking game. It's a cool aesthetic for a video game. But it's just not very Mario. Where's Bowser? Where are the Koopa Troopas? Where are the Goombas? even though it was a new franchise, these faces were pretty identifiable. This is a big part of what people loved about the first Mario Brothers. And to not have it, even Ghostbusters 2 had Slimer. Another issue I have with the game is the level design, specifically the length of the levels, because one of the great things about Super Mario games is that the levels are really short. You get these little short bursts of really creative, really cool level design that never stick around too long. They always leave you wanting more, as opposed to a really long drawn out level that you get halfway through and you're like, oh, why won't this just end? I get it. I get the new mechanic. All right, I understand. Why am I going through another door to another area? Let's just end this already. Mario 2 does that for me. A lot of the levels, and maybe it's just because you're expecting that Super Mario sort of level design and that Mario length, but a lot of the levels in Mario 2 just drag on and on and on, and they don't seem to end. And you get to the bottom of the sand, and then holy crap, I gotta go all the way back up. And it's every time you get to a door, you're hoping it leads to that bird's mouth, and it never does. I think a lot of us were so off-put by the fact that it was supposed to be Mario, and it wasn't. It's kind of like, ice cream is amazing, right? Ice cream is the best thing ever. But if you are expecting it to be soup, and you put it in your mouth, and it's ice cream, you're gonna gag, what is this? It's not what I was expecting. I think there was that gag reflex with Super Mario Bros. 2. I really have a feeling that had that game come out with a different character attached to it, I would have a very different opinion of it. And that sounds like a really crappy thing to say. It sounds totally like superficial, like, oh, you don't like that game because you don't want change. That's not true. I love when games take risks and try new things. I like when games evolve. And Mario 2, the Mario 2 that we know, it's not an evolution. Because it's not going back to that core Mario experience. Mario 3 is an evolution of the ideas and the gameplay that was presented in the first Mario. It's not the same, it's actually quite different. But all of its ideas and all the things that make it great are actually rooted in the first Mario, and they've been evolved and improved for Mario 3. Mario 2 isn't like that. It's a whole different set of parameters. It's a whole different set of rules. And those rules work for Doki Doki Panic. In fact, those rules work for really any NES platformer. It would have been a great platformer that I would probably look back on a lot more fondly, if not for the title, if not for the sprite swap, and if not for the fact that when I play a game from a series as monumentally important to me as Super Mario Brothers, I have a certain expectation. I have a certain list of expectations that game needs to meet for me as a fan. And if it doesn't meet those expectations, I mean, if the Roadrunner pulled out a mallet and hit the coyote in the face, something about that would feel a little weird. It would be funny, I would probably laugh, but then I would think about it like, that was weird. That's Super Mario Brothers 2, to me. I look back on it, and I enjoyed playing it, but that was weird.